Guys, welcome back. Thought today we'd make a card using the Spellbinders Glimmer of the Month February 23 Tulip border. Yes, it is March when I'm posting this, but you know, it's okay. So I have the, I think it's Magenta is the colour of the pink foil that came in the kit this month, or in February. And so I'm just kind of eyeballing and measuring the what size foil I'd need with not too much excess, otherwise it can overfoil. So yes, this is the Magenta one, and I'm using my Spellbinders Glimmer machine and the hot foil plates, as well as the coordinating dies that go with it, to hot foil onto some, this is some Smith's mixed media paper, that's the one. And it's kind of got it's mostly a white paper rather than a creamy colour paper, but it's nice, and it has got a slightly smoother side, which is what I'm going to try and hot foil onto. So with I had the plate on the machine, and then when it heated up using the timer, I then added the foil pretty side down. I then added my cardstock to the top of that, and then the two plates that come with the machine. And all I'm doing is very slowly running it through my Sizzix Big Shot. It does work in that, and it's made, you know, it's also made to work with that as well. But if you have the Spellbinders machines, then it will obviously work in that. So once I'd taken the plate, once I'd run it through, I took all the pieces off, left the foil to cool down a little bit before we reveal it. I don't know if that makes any difference, but that's what I did. And then I'm going to, again, just kind of guesstimate on the size piece I will need for the plate, the sentiment plate. And so I'm just prepping that. Once I put the base plate back into locked it into the base machine, it then will, there's three lights, one that will tell you the platform's ready, and then that's when you can put the hot foil plate on there, and then you press the timer and that will heat up the plate. So this is the reveal of that, and it actually worked much better than I thought it would because it's a different kind of cardstock. It's not super smooth cardstock, even though it used the smoother side. It just doesn't, I didn't think it was going to work at all, but it worked really well, which is really nice because that's what I wanted it for. I wanted to be able to do some watercoloring with it. So I'm going to take a bit of the excess cardstock there and use that for the sentiment. We're going to die cut around the tulips because that's what the die that comes with them, it's what it creates. So again, I've got the sentiment plate on there, and then I'm trying to get this on here without moving too much of it. It works fine in the end, but a bigger piece of cardstock might have been useful. So I then moved that before I put the plates on top once it was ready, and again ran it through my Big Shot slowly so that it just has time to sort of press that heat from the plate and the foil. It has time to press that into the paper. So again, as I took it off, it all just kind of fell apart, but it worked beautifully and thankfully lined up enough that I could then use the die to coordinate, you know, that coordinates with it to actually die cut it out. Perfect. So again, I'm just popping that back in there. I had some other die cutting and embossing, hot foiling to do. So I've got a few products here. So this is the Glimmer set, which I'd sort of shown you previously, and I have die cut the tulips out using, and it cuts around the edge of the tulips, and what I'm going to do is I'm using, these are, what are these? Artist Loft Pearlescent watercolor paints. They're super cheap. I think I paid like £3 for them. So years ago, they were really inexpensive, but I really like these ones. So I'm just deciding on what color I want to use, and I've actually dragged out the water brush or aqua marker. I don't know what these things are called. I always get it wrong. And this is this one that came in one of the kits from Simon. And I thought I'd give it a whirl and see how it goes. I do find it better than the other one that I did use, which was also a really well-known brand, so I don't understand. I just thought it was me. But this, I'm going to keep playing with this because this did work quite well. It's just not my favourite thing, and I would still prefer to use a paintbrush and water to watercolour. But it's whatever works for you, and this is obviously the quickest and neatest way to get that on, you know, to get you to watercolour. I can't talk today. So this is also where I struggled a bit, because I realised there were so many lines there. I lost my brain, couldn't work out what was stem and what was leaf and what was, you know, background. So I just kind of winged it, and it looks fine. I've probably missed a few, but it's okay. And I'm just literally getting some of the paint with the water brush and then just putting it on there. Very simple watercolouring, nothing fancy. And also just making sure that there's not too much over the foiling. If there's enough water with the paint, it should just kind of bead up over the hot foil, you know, the foiling areas. And then you can use a paper towel, which I only thought about afterwards, but you could use a paper towel just to dab up the excess moisture, or go back with your brush, a drier brush, to lift it off the like foiled edges. But for the most part I was kind of careful, but not really. So the bottom of the, just while I'm painting, the bottom of the this piece that this border, the tulip border, I also used the Lawn Fawn, the largest of the large stitched rectangle, just around that bottom edge to get a stitching detail. And then the cardstock piece that's up in the top right hand corner is a piece of green cardstock that I thought kind of coordinated. And so for that one I just did the same thing around the top edge of it, because the piece wasn't big enough to go all the way around using the stitching die, but I only need the top portion of it to be stitched, so that when I put the tulips over the top of it and stick the two together, it'll look like they're stitching all the way around. So that's what I did with those dies. I also cut out the sentiment, which you can also see in the top right, sorry, and that's using the coordinating die that's in the Spellbinders Glimmer kit. There is another sentiment in there as well, but I just used the one sentiment today. Now I'm taking some of the one of the pinks. There was a sort of richer, maybe a more rose red kind of pink, if that made any sense. But it was it was too dark, and I thought it would sort of almost be too matchy with the magenta. So I went for a much lighter. In the pan it looks kind of luminous, but it's not. So and I just went over it again, just going right over the foil. There's enough water, it'll just bead up and sort of it's almost like the areas that aren't foiled, kind of like with embossing, it's almost like a well kind of thing. It's just that there's not enough water, it can't move off that foil. So I just went round first round, and then I grabbed some more paint when those had dried. The ones on the right hand side had dried off a little bit. I then went back and added some more, just to get a little variation in the colour, using the same colour. So this is where watercolouring is fab. As long as it's dry, it won't try and blend with itself. And this especially works if you want to add, if you want to play around with different colours, you know, like a red and a yellow next to each other or something like that. This is where this can be kind of a fun technique to do. So all I'm doing is just trying to add a bit of, like I say, a bit of depth, a bit of extra colouring to the tulips. And this is kind of sentimental for me because we had tulips at our wedding. So yeah, and bright pink ones. so yeah, so this was quite a, when the set came out, I was really excited. I was like, oh my god, this is like our wedding. Anyway, so just getting that last little extra bit of colour on there. And then that's that for the colouring. I could have coloured the background piece in like a blue or something, kind of like it's the sky in the background. But because it was going on the green, I just decided to keep it as simple. Sometimes you don't need to do those things. You can, of course, but I think also sometimes when you're in a bit of a hurry or you need something that's kind of quick and easy to do, you don't need to add those extra things in. You know, like I say, you can, of course, but so now I'm just taking the this is the Heated Up tool by Ranger and Tim Holtz, and I just decided I needed to dry it off. I have no patience, so it was dry time, and that's what I decided to do because I also wanted to get this project done. So just drying it off. If you tilt it in the light, you could see where it was still wet from the like the moisture from the paint. Couldn't think of the word. And there it is. I'll show you a better image of it, you know, sort of more close up later on. But it's very pretty. So you've got the shimmeriness and the shininess. It's just lovely. So these are the 4 pieces you need to completely finish this card. So I decided that I wanted some foam on the back there. I was going to stick it straight down, but I decided that a bit of dimension would be nice. So I'm going to grab my honking big roll of foam tape, and it's only about 1 millimeter high, so it's really quite sort of narrow in that sense, if you know what I mean. So it's not too high, which is nice because it's not going to add too much bulk to this when it comes to posting this. If you actually post your cards, which I don't do, don't tell anyone. But if you didn't want to add bulk to it, then a sort of less high, I don't know how to say this, a less high foam is going to be ideal. And so this one just is off Amazon. I honestly don't even, I don't know what brand it is. It's not a named brand, if that makes sense. So I just started cutting pieces up just to cover the entire back of it. And then I will get that stuck to the bottom portion of that green piece. Remembering that the top part of it, and you can kind of see it in the video-ish, the top part of the green background or base piece is stitched, whereas the bottom section is not. But you're not going to see that. Once we get all this, get the tulips on there, you won't even notice that there's no stitching underneath. You guys will know that now, but you won't, somebody else getting this card is not going to notice that kind of thing. But it's extra detail like that I think just adds something else to it. So just getting all the backers off the back of all these, all the foam, and then it will line up perfectly with the bottom for 2 reasons. 1, because we use the stitching die, and 2, because, well, just really that, because the tulip piece was actually wider than the green piece. So by adding the stitching to it and using the lawn fawn dies, it then makes it the same width. So plus adding all the detail to it. So that's stuck on there now, and I just lined it up with the bottom edge of the green piece to get the tulips on. And then I'm going to, I did think about putting some foam on the back of the sentiment as well, but I didn't want to sit there and trim skinny foam. I just didn't have the patience for that. So I'm using, this is actually lawn fawn tape. This is it's a pretty strong tape, and it's it must be 1/8 inch wide, and I just got that on the back of the base piece and then also on the back of the sentiment, which I'll stick down in a minute. So when it comes to the card base is an A2 size card, and it's just a piece of grey cardstock that I had. It's actually a base that I cut up quite a while ago, and I'm just lining up top and bottom because, and for some reason upside down works better for me. Don't ask me why. But it's the width of the card, but it's not the same height. So having a little bit of the grey sticking out top and bottom, I thought that just looked quite nice. I didn't plan it that way. It's just the way that the between the tulips and the green piece that I had in stock, or a spare piece of cardstock. It's just how it worked out that it was going to leave this little border, but I actually think it looks quite nice. So, and it coordinates with the pink and the green and that of the flowers. So I hope you like this, guys. I hope the foiling inspires you to do something like watercoloring them or colouring them in. Stay tuned for the next video, and I will show you how to sort of just really simply colour them in. So until next time, bye for now.